So you have a pretty important story here. Now, the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, has come out with a new estimate, and they are now estimating that the federal budget deficit in 2020 will be over $1 trillion. So first of all, what is a budget deficit? So a deficit is different from the debt. The debt is all of the debt that's accumulated through all of the presidencies. But the annual deficit is every single year the amount that the government goes in a deficit. That is the deficit for the year. So the money that they raise from taxes and then however much they pay out, whether it's a deficit or a surplus, that is your deficit or surplus. Now, in the last year of the Bush admin, the annual deficit of that year, that last year of Bush's presidency, was about $1.2 trillion. Now, at the end of Obama's presidency, he had brought that all the way back down to $400 billion. So he had absolutely cut the shit out of Bush's annual budget deficit. Now, the CBO is projecting that the 2020 budget deficit will be over $1 trillion again. So you're taking it all the way down from $1.2 trillion down to $400 billion. And now you're just basically going back up again. So you're just fucking everything up again. And obviously, the funniest part about this is that obviously the Republicans always claim to be deficit hawks and budget hawks, but really they're not. They're not. Now, here's what this article from the New York Times says. It says, the federal government's annual budget deficit is set to widen significantly in the next few years, topping $1 trillion in 2020 despite healthy economic growth, according to new projections from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office released Monday. So, now it goes on to say, but that added economic growth does not come close to paying for the tax overhaul, which the Budget Office said would add more than $1.8 trillion to deficits over that period from lost tax revenues and higher interest payments. And if the temporary tax cuts for individuals are extended past their scheduled expiration at the end of 2025, the price tag for the tax overhaul would be even greater. In that case, CBO said, the government's debt would exceed the size of the economy by 2028. So, this is not a conspiracy. The Koch brothers actually wrote down talking points and gave them to Republicans to talk about. They gave them talking points. This is not some kind of conspiracy. They actually wrote them talking points. Now, their main talking point was, there's going to be deficits because obviously, so if you disagree with the idea that if you lower taxes, which would lower the revenue of the government, and the costs stay the same, you're going to get a bigger deficit, right? That's just common sense. Anybody fucking understands that. But what they're saying is, the economic growth that will be resulting from that will be, exponentially greater than the amount that was, that we're putting in the deficit due to the fact that we lowered the revenues of the government and kept the cost the same. But the truth is that in the CBO's estimate, the CBO, by the way, the Congressional Budget Office, is nonpartisan. So they're nonpartisan. Now, they're saying that, according to their estimates, it won't even be close to covering the massive deficit that has been put in place. So, and I've told you guys this from day one, and we've all told you guys this from day one, that this is a bunch of BS. It's not actually going to cover for all the deficit that's created. And the idea that the Republicans are actually deficit hawks and not just beholden to their donors, whether it be corporations or whatever corporations, because they all stand to gain from these tax cuts. They are just beholden to their donors. They're not actually deficit hawks or debt hawks. And that's why in Bush's last year, his deficit was $1.2 trillion, and Obama's deficit in his last year was $400 billion, and now it's projected to go back up to $1 trillion in 2020.